Hi, Kyle.
Hey, hey,
Are you
hey.
asking a question?
I thought you were
What?
gonna say hi, how are you?
How are you? How are you?
Let's
No,
try
okay.
this again. No, just
Well, because we're doing
I
introductions
know, I know,
before.
I know. I'm just gonna jump right into it, and this is where we're gonna start now.
Okay.
All right. Well, I'm happy to be here again to talk to my new bestie, Mariel. For those of you that don't know, we've, very much reconnected over the years back when you know, where we met each other when we played volleyball. It was a long time ago.
It was a long time ago.
We've changed a lot. Mariel has a lot more tattoos now.
Way more tattoos than when I was 14 years old.
I think we were 15, but
15,
even still, even still.
give or take.
Yeah. But today we're going to go over some more question and answers for you to try to broaden our thought process. And again, we like to say if you have any questions that you feel would be valid to ask or to throw our way that you'd like to hear us give a take on, feel free to send us a message and we'll see what we can do to help. So, today's first question is, how can I support my child's mental and emotional resilience without adding pressure or becoming overbearing? I think another word we're looking for there is without being a helicopter parent, maybe.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. What a great question. And the first thing that came to my mind was an episode on the podcast where I got to talk to a Canadian Olympic cyclist's parents. And I got to talk to them about like what was it like to raise an Olympian and to support him in a way that really did facilitate him being able to go the distance with his sport and continue to go the distance in his sport. And so my answer to this one comes from like my own experience from coaching and helping youth athletes and their parents, but also from what I learned from that conversation. And so um, check out that podcast episode when it launches. I'm not sure if it's going to be out or not when this one is out, but it definitely will have answers for the parents looking to do this. And now I'll dive into the answer because that was long-winded.
You were
I
just stalling. You were stalling.
I'm
No.
stalling. I'm thinking. I'm thinking. No, one of the most important pieces to building your kids' resilience is actually one of the hardest things to do as a parent. And that is literally to step back and allow them to take responsibility. And as parents, especially parents in like our kind of generation, it went from like parents being completely disconnected from their kids and like everything that was going on in their lives to all of a sudden the pendulum swung to we want to be involved in every aspect and we're on the sidelines and we're trying to coach even though we're not the coach or we're carrying the kids' equipment onto the field for them or packing their lunches and like all of these things. And we as parents are doing it with the best intentions because we care about our kid and we want them to see that we love and support them in their sport. However, by doing that, you are doing a couple of things. You're becoming overbearing in a way that the kid forgets that they're playing the sport for themselves because you're doing everything to make the sport happen except for actually playing the sport. And so the kid all of a sudden takes on this perspective of, I need to do this to make my parents happy because they're doing so much for me. And so that's the first piece. Should I allow you space to speak to it before I carry on?
No, you touch on all 3 points. I think you're going in the right direction.
Okay, so that's the first piece is to actually allow your kid to take responsibility for their sport. And when we do that, like I said, you're becoming overbearing because they think that they're playing for you then because you're the one doing everything. Number two is that you're actually taking away their opportunity to become an independent and empowered young person because you are making all the choices and they are not being provided with an opportunity to learn from their mistakes. And learning from mistakes sucks. We all know. It's part of the reason why we're trying to not let our kids learn from mistakes. But at the end of the day, if they forgot their water bottle, then they forgot their water bottle and they don't, like, that's it. You don't need to make an extra trip and go home and get their water bottle for them because then they're going to forget it again. They're not going to become responsible and empowered in making their own choices and preparing themselves to do well at their own sport. And the third piece is when we as parents step in and try and what I think in our own heads, we're trying to remove some of the pressure by, like, let's say, talking to a coach on behalf of our kid. What we're actually doing in that instance is taking away the opportunity for our kids to have agency in their own life and be able to advocate for themselves. And so it's a really cool thing that sport does is that when we as parents just show up and provide an environment that is supportive, which means that we've got healthy food in our fridge and we drive to practices and we go, good job. Did you do your best? Or, oh, you're struggling with that. Okay, have you talked to your coach about it yet? Well, no, can you? No, it's your job to talk to your coach, but how about we role play right now a little bit? I'm your coach. You talk to me. What are you going to say? And you can help them figure out how to approach a difficult situation, right? Or provide a checklist of things that need to be in the sports bag. And then it's up to them to go through the list to make sure that everything's in the bag before they go,
Mm-hmm.
right? So how can you support your child's mental and emotional resilience without adding pressure? It's actually stepping back because our role as parents when it comes to sports is to create that healthy and safe environment for our kid to show up and work hard and make mistakes and come home and know that it doesn't matter that they've made mistakes at practice or that they missed the game-winning shot or whatever. And our job is to cheer. That's
Yeah.
a few of the things that I have to say about that.
Yeah, I mean, to me, I think the biggest piece to that is responsibility. Um, I find I find responsibility is the part that is the toughest to learn, but it's
Mhm.
where they gain the most value. Um, like you said, a good example is that if your kid wants you to say something to your coach, you offer them the responsibility to say, well, you could go ask them. It's kind of like when your kid's 5 years old and they want ice cream and you're like, okay, go up to the counter and ask for ice cream. Dad or mom will pay for the ice cream, but you need to go and ask,
Mm.
right? They're all like part of the same process for trying to learn, but I think that responsibility also will tell you what kind of a kid you have or what kind of additional support they might need to get to, feeling confident in having that responsibility, right? And I
Mhm.
think it's different from playing on a team to being like an individual athlete because the responsibility as an individual in an individual sport is like all on you almost all the time, right? Because, you know, I think Michael Phelps is a good example where it's like he talks a lot about what he had to do and where it was like he had the responsibility, like if this is what he wants, he needs to be in the pool this many times a day. He needs to be eating this. Like all of that was like planned out. I'm sure he had support of his family and a whole team. an extreme example, but he could have simply just been like, I don't want to do this, or he didn't feel like he had a need to want to do that anymore. And that would just be like, losing kind of that drive to want to have the responsibility to follow through with it.
Mhm.
And, I think that's also when kids decide to stop playing sports, when they just feel like they don't have that drive anymore. Um, but I think as like you hit the nail on the head where it's like parents just need to be able to step back and know how to help in a guiding way, I think is the best way to kind of put it.
Yeah. And for example, I work with youth athletes and they come through a 12-week program with me. And the first call is getting to know them, seeing if the program is going to be a fit, and if so, then we move forward. And in that call are the parents and the athlete. And in that call, we explain that should the athletes come and do the program with us, that the parents aren't aren't able to be involved. It is up to the kid to book the meetings with the coaches. It's up to the kid to do the homework. It's up to the kid to, like, all of these things, take ownership of this process of learning how to be mentally tough, to gaining that grit when it comes to your sport.
Mhm.
And then the kids show up, they book the meetings, they like all those things, they have these sessions with us coaches. And then at halfway through the program, we have a call with the parents and the kid. And we go, okay, where was this athlete at when they first came to us? Well, they were struggling with anxiety, self-doubt, couldn't perform under pressure, like all of these things, and getting stuck in like a doom loop spiral. And and okay, so what have they learned so far in the program? And then the parents are like, oh, their attitude has changed, they're even happier at home, like all of these different things that the parents are seeing. And this is a really cool part because halfway through the program, when we're in this meeting, we go, okay, athletes, what are mom and dad doing that make you feel totally supported and that you absolutely love? And then the list comes, right? Oh,
Mhm.
they pack my lunches, they make sure that I get to practice, they pay for it, they all of these things. And it's like, okay, that's so good. Thank you, mom and dad, for being those parents and doing putting all this stuff on the line and together so that the kid can succeed at this sport. And then we ask, what are mom and dad doing or not doing that they could be doing better? And then the kid, for the first time, a lot of times, has like a bit of a safe environment. Not that homes aren't safe, but it's uncomfortable for a kid to come to a parent and be like, I don't like it when you do this in a
For sure.
calm situation. It might happen in a like, can you stop doing this, please? situation. But in a constructive way to have that conversation, it's nerve-wracking. It's nerve-wracking for adults to do that, let alone a
Mhm.
kid go to their parent, right?
Yep.
And so this meeting is really cool because then the kid is going, okay, my coach is here. I know that my coach has my back. Mom, I know that you used to swim. And so I know, that you have all these techniques and things. And when I get out of the pool, you tell me, oh, this went good, this went bad, da 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 da. But that really just puts a lot of pressure on me. Or, whatever that is. When you yell in the stands or when
Yep.
whatever that is, all of a sudden there's like and all of us parents, we go, oh, like I haven't had a meeting yet with a parent who has been really upset about the feedback, even though it might be hard to hear.
Yeah.
And
I mean,
so,
I would think the feedback would be incredibly valuable. The trouble I would see is like, I think if the parent chose to have the tool to go to their child and ask, I think a child to their parent one to one would have a really hard time saying what they really thought because they'd either wouldn't want to hurt their parents' feelings,
yeah.
or it was like it's an opportunity to hurt their feelings and they would just say it the wrong way, right? Like I think
Yeah.
it's a tough situation unless you have like that mediator or just somebody else to kind of help with the process. So,
Yeah. But it's interesting, actually, and I talked about this with Shawnee Harley, who's an Olympic basketball coach, and her episode is already out. Go take a listen. But we talked about this exact situation, and she said, you know what, parents do ask though. Like,
mhm,
do ask and give your kid the opportunity to have that conversation. And if they do it in a snippy way, then like try and be able to emotionally regulate
yeah,
and just hear the feedback and not the tude. Or if the kid doesn't want to, like if your athlete doesn't want to say anything because they are nervous and they don't want to hurt your feelings, you can say, you know what? If you don't want to tell me or you want to take time to think about it or like whatever, why don't you write it down? Write it down and like slip
yeah,
it under my door at night or leave it on my pillow or whatever it is. Because at the end of the day, us parents, we're doing this for the first time.
mhm,
And so feedback is nice, even though it's not nice sometimes. Do you know what I mean?
I do.
But yeah, some tips and tricks to be able to like actually help is stepping back, allowing your kid to take responsibility and take ownership. Okay. And that's the other thing. The last meeting, I wanted to get to this part. The last meeting is like the graduation from this program. And so that's the last meeting, and the parents are in that one too. So in the first, the middle, and the
Right.
last. And in the last meeting, we asked the kids, like, what what was something that really like stood out to you, and like, and so they go, oh, I changed in this way and this way and this way, and and it's all these amazing impacts, like I can bring myself back to a neutral place, and I'm understanding goals and all these things. And then it's like, well, who did this? And they're like, me. And we're like, yeah, who did this? Me.
Mhm.
That's right. And then they're like, yeah. And they get so excited. And they literally say, it was really awesome that I did this on my own. It was super hard to learn all these techniques and to become mentally tough. And I did it on my own. And they feel so empowered.
Yeah.
Pretty cool.
Yeah. I think one thing that I find interesting, and this is like a bit of a generational thing, but I remember playing sports and like if we were told something at practice by the coach, it was our responsibility to tell our parents.
Hmm.
It wasn't always the coach's responsibility to relay it to mom and dad or any relative or family member that was taking you to practices. So I feel like as an athlete growing up, I felt like there was a different level of like, I felt I had a good grasp of what was going on. Like, this is our tournament schedule, these are our practice schedules. It wasn't like, mom, dad, when are my practices? It was, hey, mom and dad, I have practice from 3 to 4:30. I won't be home till this time.
Yeah.
So whereas like again, nowadays the parents know all the details. They have all the information about practices, schedule, right down to like, you know, probably what their kid is eating sometimes, which
Hmm.
again, I think there's value to that,
Yeah.
but it can take away from some of the responsibility that their kids get to have,
Hmm.
right? And I think there's just a there in some ways if there's a progression of like, hey, I'm going to stop filling your water bottle for you, or hey, you take the responsibility now to grab your water bottle. I've done it for the last 2 years or whatever, and now I would like you to take that on,
Hmm.
right? And just kind of give the and like explain it that way, I think would also add that value of being like, okay, I'm getting your child is getting the opportunity to take that responsibility with them to whatever field or court they go to.
Yeah. Yeah. I agree. Good question.
All right. So this next one, I would say has some similarities to it, but um, what should I look for when it comes to burnout, stress, or mental fatigue in my athlete, and how can I help prevent it? And let's say put a coach's hat on or even a parent hat. We're both parents.
Hmm.
What's even the difference between those two thought processes, you could say?
I think about this for a second.
Yeah, just sit into it a
Yeah.
little bit. But
Burnout is a real thing. It is such a real thing. Like I remember when we played, I think I maybe had 2 weeks off a year. Like it
right.
was insane.
So what I want to ask, because this kind of tails into this, none of these are words that I would have ever associated with any of the sports that I remembered playing. Burnout, stress, or mental fatigue. Do you ever remember those three things ever coming up during any time when you played any sport?
No, I don't, but I don't think that that was necessarily a good thing.
I would agree. I just think
Yeah.
it's so interesting that like
Yes.
these are such big topics now. I mean, I
Yes.
have a book that's about a cure for burnout, and like, you know, though like stress is a big thing, mental fatigue is so
Yeah.
widely talked about now in very different ways. Like there's so many different directions to go with mental fatigue and kind of what it taps into, but
Yeah.
it's wild to look at this question and to see like three things that none of us would have ever thought of when we were
Hmm.
playing. We can look at it more now,
Yeah.
but a lot harder to do when we were actually in it.
Yeah. Oh yeah, totally. Because like, yeah, 2 weeks, like I would play high school, club, provincial team, indoor, provincial team, beach, school. And then over like spring break and Christmas break, there were camps.
Yep.
And in summer, there was also camps.
Yep.
And so it was just all the time. And then strength and conditioning and then mental strength, like boom, 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 right? And so I get it. And it was a real thing. It is a real thing. And I almost think, honestly, I almost think it's more so a real thing now with the amount of pressure that is on young athletes. I don't know. Maybe it is just because we're talking, who knows, chicken or egg, right? Like, is there more because we're talking about it, or is there
I think it's more competitive.
Yeah.
So in every sport, I think it's more competitive.
Hmm.
Um, because of the ability to get private training, additional training, all these extra add-ons,
Hmm.
you know, that are an advantage. You know, if you are a top swimmer and you chose to try to train like Michael Phelps,
Yeah.
you'd have to do and try to do all the things that he did. And that includes some form of mental training and toughness and, you know, physically training and sacrificing all these things. And
Hmm.
I think that's part of what it comes down to is like, are you willing to sacrifice, you know, summer summer vacation where you don't do much and just
Hmm.
enjoy it and relax? Or is it, I'm sacrificing that to get in the gym, go to camps, go to clinics, get private training, whatever it is that you feel might give you that advantage in your sport? And the reality is that all the other kids are doing that. So if you're not doing that, I think there's a pressure that these kids feel that's
Yeah.
like all these people around me, we're all doing the same sport, but all these kids are getting better or they're all trying to do that. You know, they're
Hmm.
trying to climb this mountain and trying to get to the top. And if I choose not to do something, I'm going to stay down here. I'm just going to stay at base camp and I'm never going to make that jump to the next level.
Yeah, well, that's really, look at you're talking about that. I'm just getting stressed out listening. I'm getting freaking stressed out listening to you, Kyle.
It makes me want to turn back the clock and
Oh
do it
my God,
again.
no, no. But I think as parents, how how can we manage burnout and stress and mental fatigue is by I'm going to reroute back to the environment. What is your home environment like? Because that is what is within your control to help support your kid. So burnout, stress, like how are they sleeping? Are they hydrating? What kind of food is in your fridge?
Hmm.
And are you supporting them in their choice to like you were saying, give up some of those social things. And I talked quite deeply about this with Tyler Rourke, who is the Olympic cyclist.
Hmm.
And and I talked about because I think he's 23, maybe 24.
We'll say mid 20s.
Mid-20s, mid early to mid-20s. And we talked quite a lot about this, about what is it like to actually go the distance as a young guy? And what did you have to give up? And how do you not burn out? And he said, you know what? My passion and my like fire for this sport is so great that when I am in my moments of training and like it is my lifestyle, that I'm
Yep.
so invested into that and I give it 110% so that like I give my recovery 100, I take care of myself, my body, like all those things, but I still make sure that I do have time with like social. And
Right.
because of the amount of investment and intention that he puts into his sport and the way that he lives his life in order to be the athlete that he is, it means that when he is out with his friends, he guilt-free enjoys himself and really is intentional in those moments to be present. Does
Hmm.
that make sense?
I think so. We talked about this a little while ago about what I've been trying to do, which is like I've been either running or walking or just getting out more and doing more of that. And so I've also been seeing way more of that stuff on Instagram, and I've come across triathlon athletes and all this stuff. And one of the biggest things that they consistently talk about is that you have to give up a lot to train
Mhm.
in that environment and to get to that level because there's so much that's required to um, prepare your body for what you might do in a triathlon or an Ironman or ultra run or any of those extreme sports. And the reality is that every sport kind of has that extreme if you choose to go that distance. And it requires that sacrifice where, like, hey, your friend wants to go and have a drink, and you're like, hey, I'm actually running tomorrow morning at 4 a.m. and I need to go to bed. Like, I need to properly prepare for it so that I can get the most out of it that I can.
Mhm.
And, I think, um, when I think to burnout or stress or, fatigue in some way, whether it's physical or mental, it's also just being able to understand your kid
Mhm.
or yourself, like your own body, depending on who's in it, to be able to say, what do I need? Because the social piece is important for sure, but your social need might be different than mine. And if we asked five other people, it might be the same, like completely different thought processes, right?
Yeah.
Maybe they have a dog and that's their social, and like that's totally fine,
Yeah.
right? Because they maybe don't even prefer to be out in those social environments. And your kid could be that way too. And if
Yeah.
that's something that you learn about your child and you figure that out, then they're probably less likely to burn out on something that is social because
Mhm.
it's not something they're going to want to do or put themselves in front of very often.
Yeah. And I th there's two things that I want to say. The first thing is, have you asked your kid? Like, have you asked your athlete, you know, these are some things that I'm seeing, and I want to support you in still finding joy in your sport. How can I help you do that because I know that you love this and I know that you're working really hard and I know that you have big goals, but I also want you to enjoy yourself because when you have fun in your sport, you do better.
Mm-hmm.
And just ask them
Yeah.
because maybe they know. And if they don't know, then say, okay, well, maybe let's get curious together and come up with some different ideas that might be fun.
Yeah, or it goes back to that first question, which is like it provides them the responsibility to
Yeah.
decide what they
Yeah.
want and
Gives
what
them
they,
agency.
you know, if a big goal is to make the Olympics for
Yeah.
whatever sport they choose to want to be in,
Yeah.
and they realize the sacrifice, or they see like a profile when they do profiles on athletes in the Olympics, and I remember seeing those as a kid and being like, that would be cool. Like,
Yeah.
but you learn about their sacrifice and what they did and what their story is to get there. And it's
Yeah.
not easy. It never is, right? None of the stories that, either one of us could tell about our playing careers made was easy.
No.
There were a lot of things that we sacrificed or put a lot of time and effort to make them a reality,
Yeah.
right? So, and I
Yeah.
think those are things I'd like to think eventually we'll be able to share with our own kids if that's something that they want to, strive for.
Yeah. Yeah, totally. And I actually just recorded this episode with Jordan Owens, and he played for the New York Rangers, NHL, and then he went and played like 10 to 12 years professionally across Europe. Okay, hockey player, serious dude,
Hmm.
awesome, great guy. Uh, and and the biggest thing out of the entire podcast, the thing that he wanted youth athletes to hear was that now that he has like been there, done that, reached his goal, even went beyond, like all those things, that at the end of the day, he found the most joy and the most important part was the journey. And so all of us athletes with these big goals, we're trying to get to that goal as fast as we can, which is why we're doing all the extra things and why we're feeling burnt out and stressed out and exhausted and all of these things. But what Jordan was saying was that also slow down because celebrating with your team at a Red Robins afterwards brings just as much joy as winning a game in the NHL. And so celebrating those small moments and having gratitude for the small, like the joys that are happening right now and acknowledging those also helps with the stress and the burnout and the this. It's before we race on to the next thing or what to improve or it's okay, but this just happened. Yeah. And then that's how we keep the joy
Yeah.
rather than, okay, it happened. Now what?
Yeah. What's next instead of just enjoying the moment,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. And I thought that was a really powerful lesson that he shared.
Yeah. I think that I think that speaks on a lot of different levels. And sometimes you might ask kids when their season is over what their favorite part of the year was, and sometimes it will be that team dinner,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Totally.
Could
Yeah.
be something completely separate from their game, from the actual performance they had, or any experience they had on the court during the year. And it could just be, hey, I made 5 really close friends.
Yeah.
And that's okay too. Like there's so many different things that you get out of sports, you
Yeah.
know. Again, even if you're in an individual sport, some athletes end up having an incredible relationship with their coach
Mm-hmm.
or the mentors or anybody that's part of their team that gets them there,
Yeah.
you know. I think tennis is a great example of that, where it's like you see the main athlete, you see them on the big stage, but they are usually quick to thank everybody that was part of their team to get them
Yes.
there because it is a team effort,
Yeah.
right? Very
Yeah.
much so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hmm.
So let it sink in a little longer. No. Before I hit you with the last one for today,
Okay.
um, I think this kind of encompasses all of this in some way, where how important is mindset and mental training compared to physical training, and how can I help my child develop that part of their game to make it better?
It is just as important. Like, I am honestly a firm believer that mindset and mental training, like performance mindset and mental training, is just as important as physical skill. Because at the end of the day, if you have an athlete, if you, let's say we have two players who are gonna try out for the NHL and their skill level is it's 10 out of 10. The athlete who also has mental toughness and has a tool belt full of things that are helping with performance mindset is 100% going to make the team over the person who is just amazing at their sport. And like I think too, more importantly, speaking out of experience too, is that we're not often going to spend the rest of our lives doing that physical skill set when it comes to sport. Like, unless you're gonna go and be a volleyball coach for the rest of your life, and that's the only, and then you're doing those repetitive motions. Yeah, 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 Kyle, you're like,
That's
that's
what I
me.
do. No.
I know, I know. But there's very few people who need to know how to shoot a hockey puck into a net as a life skill.
Hmm.
And performance mindset and mental training is transferable across life. Like, those skills literally saved my life. I wouldn't be here without them. And I use them on the daily as a podcast host, as a boss, as a partner, as a mom, like whatever that looks like. I use those skills every single day to enhance my life and to keep me sane and people around me sane. Right? So that's why in my mind you can tell I'm very passionate about this. It is 100% just as important. And I think this also leads back to the burnout piece, because if your kid is getting burnt out because they're going to like 2-a-day practices and strength and conditioning and coaching and all of these things physically, there is a lot of power behind allowing their physical body to rest and switching on the workout to the mind, because it's a muscle too that we need to work out. These like mindset techniques aren't something that you just learn once and then okay. It's no, you learn the technique and then you have to spend time practicing it, just like everything else.
Yeah. I think, a big shift in the sports world is that not only is it just globally more talked about to do that, but the coaches, the trainers, all the people that are like guiding athletes are very much more aware of these tools or the importance of it. Um, I still, in some ways, believe that from a mental or physical standpoint, there are some athletes that naturally are just gifted in those
Hmm.
areas too.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's just something that's important to recognize, like as a parent, like, okay, my kid's pretty physically gifted, but they could really use some help in the mental training. Or
Mm-hmm.
hey, they seem mentally tough, like nothing really seems to phase them on the court. Things go sour and they seem to be doing okay, but they're not physically strong. I think there's just, being able to learn and identify as a parent or a coach where those improvements need to happen. Both need to happen for sure.
Yeah.
But I think it's just also being able to identify what is the most important thing for this kid right now,
Hmm.
or your own kid or yourself, because you know the mental training or the physical training might not be something you're able to do both of. You might have to pick one for right
Yeah.
now because that's all you're able to focus on, or the thought of that, like we were just saying, the thought of that stresses you out or burns you out to be like, that's so much. I need to physically train and a mental train. Like that's a lot, right? So if that's the reaction, mental training is probably the way to go. But I think you get what I mean. Is like
Yes.
it's being able to identify, you know, to yourself or to your parents or to whoever's trying to support you, what you need, what is going to help you feel better, so to speak,
Hmm.
right? Like you
Yeah.
saying, I want to go for a run and go for a walk. I feel like those things are physically benefiting me, but they're like indirectly mentally, benefiting me as well. Which
Yeah.
is what I'm seeing or feeling or hoping that I'm seeing in the long run. So,
Yeah. No, totally. These were really great questions, and but they were all from the parents' perspective, which I love it. Parents keep them coming, but this podcast is also for youth, and we really do hope that youth, like you youth athletes, are listening to it. And so I do want to bring up one question that well, I always have hundreds of questions from youth athletes, but this one is just on the top of my head. I had an athlete reach out to me who works with me, and they were about to go and compete, and they were feeling super anxious in their head, just couldn't get out of it. And so they literally like went into a corner, grabbed their phone and messaged me and was like, I'm freaking out right in that moment. And I love it. I don't love it when you're feeling like that. I love it when you're feeling like that and you reach out. That
mm,
is so good because the support is there when you're working with a coach, right? And so he reached out to me and was like, what do I do? I'm freaking out. And I had an amazing woman on the podcast who she's the Serbian championship like title boxer. Her name is Jelena. Look up that podcast as well. But she taught me on that podcast a way to that she calms her nerves before she's going into these massive fights.
mm,
And so I want to share it right now on the podcast for all of you parents and youth like who are listening and need to be able to calm down your nerves, calm down your anxiety, and like just center and ground yourselves. So everybody put your hands together like you're giving yourself a high five. And then spread your fingers kind of apart. And now take a deep breath and fill up your belly first, and then your chest, and then breathe out. And now, one finger at a time, starting with your pinky, I want you to take your pinkies apart and then touch them back together again while keeping your palms together. And now do it to your ring finger. Pull them apart and back together. Your middle fingers, pull them apart and back together. Pointer fingers, pull them apart, back together. Thumbs, pull them apart and back together. And while you're doing this, in your anxious state, you're doing your breathing and you're pulling those fingertips apart and putting them together one at a time. Listen and see what you can hear. And Jelena said you listened for happy sounds. And I was I was like, okay. Like in my head, happy sounds are nature. Like where's the waterfall and birds chirping inside a gym where you're about to go box somebody? I'm not quite sure. And she laughed. And she said, no. She said, the sound of shoes squeaking. That's the sound of somebody warming up to go and accomplish their goals. The sound of somebody's coach talking to them because they're getting support and feedback that they need. And so these were she changed those, all the sounds in her environment to create some sort of tag of happy on them. And between doing that and doing the fingertips apart and together, her anxiety drops away and she becomes totally connected and ready to step into the ring and fight. And she wins all the time. So you guys, it works.
It's a knockout.
Literally. She's so badass. But so I just wanted to leave this podcast off with that because it's like it's a tangible tool for your belt for when you're anxious. And it's something that you can do kind of quickly too. And like, tuck away to the corner or stand there, whatever. It doesn't matter. You can do it if you're a swimmer, you can do it on the block before they say take your marks. Like it doesn't matter, right? So just being able to have a tool like that to calm us down is really important. So, yeah, that's it. Today was fun. How was today for you, Kyle?
Today was great. I've been waiting the whole time to ask, why are your fingers pink?
Oh my God.
You look like you've been doing finger painting with only the
It kind of
color
like
pink.
matches my hair.
I was gonna ask, is your hair color coming out?
No, no, you know what it is? I love that. I had beets for dinner.
Oh, that
And so
does
I
make
was
sense.
washing and peeling beets, and then I was like, oh my gosh, this is going to be in my podcast. So I'm glad that you called attention to it. Yes, they're
Yeah,
pink and it's beets. And they were
yeah.
delicious.
I hope so. I hope your fingertips were worth it for that.
They were. Oh man. Well, Kyle, thanks again for coming on and joining me in another Q&A session. I love having you on here. It's always a good time.
Well, thanks for having me. I look forward to the next one.
Yeah, and until next time, train your mind, build your grit, and forge your legacy.